Alrighty. It's going to be another stream, another wonderful, very interesting stream tonight. We got very interesting content, brand new, right off the press. That's right. Kona Blue. Everyone's talking about that right now. What is that? What is Kona Blue? Well, it was a secret project that the Pentagon is just now admitting. This is a bombshell. And we're going to talk about it tonight. We're going to talk about...
T-minus 3 minutes and counting. T-minus 3. We are go with all elements of the mission at this time.
We're going to talk about all kinds of stuff. But primarily, at the beginning, we're going to discuss Kona Blue. Kona Blue. And then, as we get into it, we're going to discuss some even more interesting things. Because Tucker was on Joe Rogan's podcast, and he gets into some fascinating things about the spirituality of these things. We've talked a lot about that on this program already, but you're going to want to hang out and not miss this. I see Bunny, Karen, Christine, Hans, Paul, Leah. Hello from the foothills, from the dark forest, creepy forest where I live.
We just passed the 2-minute mark in the countdown. T-minus 1 minute, 54 seconds and counting. All indications coming in to the control center at this time indicate we are go. Guidance system goes on internal at 17 seconds, leading up to the ignition sequence at 8.9 seconds. T-minus 60 seconds and counting. We passed T-minus 60.
Mysteries to the universe we were never meant to solve. But who we are and why we are here are not among them.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back to Strange Normal. My name is Bradley. We talk about the stranger things that happen in your normal life to give you a biblical understanding of what is going on, and there has been a lot going on. In fact, we have a full show tonight. Lots and lots of stuff to talk about, not only in this crazy spiritual realm, the huge deception that's here about to come up. We're going to cover the latest, and as we always do, we try to get the stuff from the latest last week or the week before. But before we get started, I want to reach out to you guys that are actually live streaming with us right now, that are on live, because this is going to be pre-recorded for it later. If you are having any buffering issues, please let me know. I am getting some weird errors up here, and I want to make sure that you aren't having any trouble. I have seen a couple people in the chat, but if you also are experiencing perfect stream, tell me too. Because if everyone comes out and just a few that are having buffering issues, well, then I'm going to stop the stream and try to fix it. So let me see what you have to say in the stream, and we'll go from there. Now, before we get started, I want to bring in our guest tonight, actually co-host, I guess you could say. Matthew, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing well. How are you, Brad?
I'm doing very well. Man, I haven't seen your face for so long. It's so good to see you again.
Oh, I'm sure you've missed it. I'm sure we've all missed it. Well, here it is. And I hope everything is going well. And as Brad said, the buffering issue is not affecting the stream, because there are some pretty new topics and it's some familiar faces, I think. So you'll notice, if you're a reoccurring viewer, that these names keep popping up and these faces keep popping up, and I don't think that's a coincidence. I think it is by design that certain people have been selected, whether by human agencies or spiritual ones, to be the disseminators of the message, to get people hyped up and use what influence they have to focus people in on this deception, which I believe has the potential to entrap all of the minds across the world. I don't think there's a single person on Earth who would not be absolutely fascinated by alien life coming to Earth, or maybe alien life already existing on Earth for quite some time. We'll have to get into that tonight so that we can discuss.
Did you see the Joe Rogan podcast? You sound like you have already.
I haven't seen it, but I have a feeling I know what I'm going to hear. It's some stuff. Like I said, it's certain faces, certain names, and certain messages that come with it. And I think let alone from just a brief glance at tonight's outline, I got a good feeling that we're going to hear some wild stuff.
Everyone's in the chat is saying, "Good to see you, Matthew. We can actually see you again," and I think it's really great that you're on visible. So does that mean your camera's working now, or tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, clearly there's camera here, right?
Is it the same one? I'm the one that we've been struggling with for so long.
No, it is not the one I've been struggling with, so hopefully there are no disconnection issues, and you continue to see me. And if there are any issues, well then, I'm completely out of ideas, completely out of options.
Very good.
And I'll be filling up my bathtub and just dropping my desktop into it. And that'll be the end of that.
Well, very good. I think tonight's episode is going to be very, very interesting, and please stick around, because we're going to cover first the news, what's happened this last week, and then we're going to get into what some of the most popular commentators on this actually believe about this. And I got so much to say, but I don't want to reveal too much yet. So let's just get straight into the news. I don't even know which news clip's coming up. I know we got 3 of them. I've watched them all. They're all interesting, and they all contain a little bit different information, and they're all News Nation. News Nation seems to cover this quite a bit. But I want to first just drop straight into this last week's news to see what in the world's going on. This is the first one. Pentagon acknowledges secret UFO project, Kona Blue program. Watch this.
Kona Blue have anything to do with the program David Grush says exists? News Nation's Joe Khalil is here now with more. Joe, there is a tiny credibility question here. The Pentagon has been saying for the past year there was never any such reverse engineering program. Now it says, oh, there was one, but it never really got started.
Yeah, I mean, there were rumors about this program, the code name Kona Blue, for a long time now. And it was only last month that they acknowledged for the first time ever that it existed. Now we are getting an inside look at how this program was propped up. So it's called Kona Blue. It is real. It was a special access program, very highly classified. It was proposed from the Pentagon to the Department of Homeland Security. We now have all of these declassified documents, and in them, it describes the purpose of the program as, and I'm going to quote here, acquiring, studying, and engineering technology that the U.S. got from UAPs, or UFOs. In the documents, it refers to them as AAVs, Advanced Aerospace Vehicles. Ultimately, the program was scrapped by the Department of Homeland Security, but not before years of planning went into it from the Pentagon, and it describes in detail how they stood the program up. They set a budget, $12 million to $15 million the first year, going all the way up to $50 million down the road. And the program in these documents now also makes specific reference to locations in Nevada where some material may be housed. It also references recovered UAP material, personnel with knowledge of recovered technology, and also personnel who know of the whereabouts of this. And just lastly, if you think this sounds too sci-fi, or that this was maybe one or two rogue employees at the Pentagon, in these documents it also shows that the Undersecretary of Science and Technology signed off on this program and approved it, saying in these documents that it was a necessary step for national security. So all of that is in here now. We did get a response from the Department of Homeland Security today, and they said simply, quote, while this program was considered under a prior administration, it was never fully established by the Department of Homeland Security. DHS has released these classified documents consistent with its commitment to transparency. So, Elizabeth, it looks like we now have some very clear specifics about what was in this, at least proposal, for this plan from the Pentagon.
Wait, you mentioned some budget figures there in the tens of millions of dollars. Was that money ever spent? Was money ever spent on Blue Kona?
I don't believe the money was spent. The money was effectively sort of earmarked within the DoD's budget or the Pentagon's budget, but the program, to my understanding, was scrapped before that money was spent because it was allocated specifically for year 1, year 2, year 3, and year 3 being an expectation for what they would need at that point.
And what do we make of the fact that they keep talking about locations in Nevada and material being housed in Nevada? What is that a reference to?
Yeah, that was really interesting. So it was referencing locations where the program was scoping out for if they had recovered these types of material or pieces of recovered vehicle, where they may be housed, where they may be kept. They were bringing on a scientific team to study and do that kind of thing. So they were literally already scoping out locations where that type of work was going to happen. And it's all laid out there in these now declassified documents, right in black and white.
All right. Joe Khalil reporting live from Capitol Hill. Thanks so much. Thanks.
All right, so that's going to pause right there. That's interesting that they created a program. I mean, starting at $12 million, they said we didn't really get it started. But the next year we gave it a budget of $25 million. And the next year we kind of bumped it up to $50 million. But nothing ever happened for 3 years. Now, this is the same government that's saying, UFOs don't exist for like 60 years. And then they are, well, they might exist, but probably not. And then they said, okay, well, they do exist, and we just don't know what they are. And then they said, well, we don't have any programs that recover or do anything about physical craft. And then they said, well, we actually had a program that we did that, but we didn't actually use it. It didn't actually get implemented. I mean, at what point? I don't want to get caught up in the whole the government is lying. But at the same time, it is really fascinating to see, wow, somebody's talking out of both sides of their mouth here, and it really blows my mind that so much is being said about this. And from my perspective, and everyone knows my view, my worldview on this, I truly think that this is a tactic to make people talk more about it. I mean, the more you talk about it, the more you spread this idea, and the more you hype, you build about this thing, and all of a sudden, boom, at the very end, a surprise comes. And I think that's what's happening. What do you think about all this?
Well, it's good to know that you're a tax-paying citizen that trusts his government, Brad. I'm not quite that way. Not the tax-paying part, but the trusting the government part. I do not trust the government. I know that the government has lied to its citizens, and I do not think that it exists to serve the interests of its people. And I could extend that to governments across the world, not just the United States government. When you're talking about this money, I mean, to us it seems like, wow, that's a lot of dough, huh? $50 million, wow, for a program? $50 million is really chump change. I mean, I don't know if you've looked at some of the budgets that they allocate, but this is for one program. And this is what I want to keep in mind. One program, Kona Blue, which it's interesting too that it's Kona Blue, and I think we also know about Blue Beam. That's another people who
That is
are into UAPs. So I don't know if blue is like a something they slap on something just to, for those who are in the know to kind of understand. Oh, it's dealing with a UAP type of a thing. If blue is attached to it, I don't know. Just something I picked up on, but. For every project that we're going to know about that the government willingly declassifies and says, in the interest of transparency, because it's all about transparency, they just want you to know. Well, you have a right to know. It's your tax dollars going to fund it, right? Well, they want you to know that there's this one little program that they put this money towards and nothing came out of it, but it seemed like a really important thing to invest in. Well, there are several dozen projects that you are not hearing about and will never be declassified, and way more money is being pumped into those projects. So just keep in mind that anytime there's an admission, it's like cockroaches, right? They say if you see one cockroach in your house, there's like hundreds that you're not seeing. So we're seeing a single cockroach that they're essentially like lifting up the carpet and saying, oh, look, there's one. And we knew it was there, and this is what it was about. But, it's just one little cockroach. No, the rot it goes very deep. And one day, I think we'll be afforded the privilege to know just how rotten the system is and corrupt it is, and how many of these crazy projects were out there and battling for influence and budgets and that type of a thing. The world of politics, I mean, it is just my heart goes out to anybody who's caught up in the political games, because it's like consuming. I mean, you just really, it's so tribal and so divided. And I'm not even just talking about people who are very into politics, political activism. It's people who are part of the system. It's all games, and it must get so tiring because you can't even be yourself at a certain point. It's like, in order to get what I want, I have to put on a mask, and not only just one mask, but I have a dozen of them that I cycle through. So this whole thing, releasing this information, I expect there to be some more revelations out of the government where they talk a bit more about how seriously, because that's what you're essentially with that list. The progression you were showing is, at one point in time, the government would not entertain this. Oh, not publicly. This is not something that's real. It's all science fiction. People's imaginations getting away from them. Swamp gas and weather balloons.
Right.
The classic. But now we see that's not the case.
Right.
And I think they'll continue to show a bit more as we get closer and closer to the time where the deception comes on the world, that they that they have a vested interest in the phenomenon.
Right. Yeah, and that's my point. I don't think them saying, hey, we never actually used this program, I'm not sure if we can trust that. I mean, we've looked at the history throughout the years, and again, I don't want to get caught up in the, well, can we trust them, can we not? Look at this is amazing. Ultimately, we know what the end game is, and that is going to be, hey, we've been here monitoring you a long time. In fact, we have a record of everything you've done. I mean, they want to be like God, and so they're going to pretend to be like that. And we think that you guys can do better, and this is how you do it. And so I believe that's what's coming down the line here. We got two more news clips to look through, and then we're going to jump into Joe Rogan, which is actually going to talk a little bit about this Kona Blue program. They've looked at it themselves, because I believe Lou Elizondo was telling them about this. They don't actually say it, but they infer it. So we're gonna dig into that a little bit. But before we do, let's look at this next clip.
We are learning more about a top secret extraterrestrial program that never actually happened. The Pentagon says the government once had a plan to reverse engineer any recovered UFOs. The plan was proposed to the Department of Homeland Security, known as Kona Blue, but apparently no one heard about it because they say they never were able to collect any, quote, otherworldly spacecraft. Let's bring in News Nation's Joe Khalil, who is live for us in Washington with more. Joe.
Yeah, so it's interesting. This is a program that we've just learned about now from Arrow. They just released newly declassified documents from Homeland Security, and it lays out this special access program or top secret program called Kona Blue. The purpose of which, according to these documents, was to acquire, to study, to engineer, and to identify technology from what they called AAVs, or Advanced Aerospace Vehicles, so what we might now fall under the category of UAPs. And it's here for you in black and white. These newly declassified documents are laying out in incredible detail how the program itself was stood up. It lays out a budget, $12 to $15 million. The first year, $25 million. The second year, eventually upwards to $50 million. And it also laid out its purpose, which was national security. Remember, this is Homeland Security and DOD working together on this. The document says the purpose was to, I'm quoting now, access recovered advanced technology and determine its threat capability. Within that, explicitly, is also a detailed effort to try to reverse engineer these recovered technologies and also to get a grasp on whether our adversaries, and in particular, they're named in this report, China and Russia, have access to recovered AAVs as well. Now, at one point in the justification for why Kona Blue would need to remain classified, it says here, and I'm quoting again, recovered AAV technology exists in and is accessible only within an SAP or Special Access Program construct. And it goes on to say retrieval and integration of historical data from high-value personnel with knowledge of recovered AAV technology and present location of recovered material is accessible only with a classified construct. If you take a look at another document here that we found within this, it also, for those who think this may sound sci-fi or crazy, this is the Undersecretary of Science and Technology. So one of the top scientists at Homeland Security at the time, Tara O'Toole, reading and signing off on this program, approving it. Now, all of this is significant because for years, Kona Blue was talked about, rumored about. Just last month, for the first time, the Department of Defense acknowledged that it existed, and now, for the first time, we're actually seeing it in black and white. Now, what DOD has said is that they scrapped this program because, yes, they meant to retrieve this kind of material and reverse engineer it, but they say they didn't actually find anything. That was what the Pentagon said last month, so they ended up scrapping the program. We did just, in the last 15 minutes, get a comment from Homeland Security. They say that this program was never actually approved, but still fascinating to see this laid out in such detail in black and white for the first time there, Nicole.
All right, Joe. Khalil live in Washington. Thank you.
Okay, nothing hugely new there, but I want to continue on to the next clip real quick before, if you have anything to say, hold it until the next one. Watch this.
Joining us now is News Nation's special correspondent Ross Coulthart. What's your reaction, Ross, to these declassified, now newly declassified documents in Kona Blue?
Good evening, Elizabeth. Well, look, it does sound sci-fi, but I can tell you there are people inside the Defense Department, former and serving, who do believe that the claims made in the Kona Blue documents were authentic. But that's vigorously disputed, of course, by the ARRO, the Pentagon's UAP investigation team. They did their historical review and published a few weeks ago, and they said, yes, there was this codename Kona Blue program that was proposed, never implemented, but proposed as a special access program, one of the deepest, darkest secrets in the US government. And they claim at ARRO that, of course, they investigated and they found no evidence to support claims of retrieved non-human technology. All I can tell you, Elizabeth, is that we now have a very clear difference of opinion inside the Defense Department and also inside the intelligence community. Because one of the things that's conspicuous, ever since that ARRO historical report was published a few weeks ago, which refuted Kona Blue's documents and said that there was nothing in the whole program, the allegations were based on false premises. What's been conspicuous is that the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, the intelligence czar that was appointed post 9/11 to centralize and control intelligence in the United States, they haven't backed the Pentagon's claims in the Arrow report.
Have they contradicted them, or are they just not commenting?
They're just not commenting. And it's very interesting because I'm told there is a split between the intelligence community and the Defense Department. The Pentagon's decided to bluff it out and go it alone. There are people who are passionately of the view that there is authentic, recovered, non-human technology in the possession of the United States, and they are determined to get access to it so that its utility can be exploited, weapons can be developed, technologies can be advanced to the benefit of the American people. The problem is there's a group inside the Pentagon, they believe, who are blocking access to this technology, and that's what the decision to not make Kona Blue a special access program was all about. This was an attempt by a group of committed people inside the Pentagon who do believe this technology exists to try and make sure that they did everything properly, by the book, by the law.
Is it
and
possible,
unfortunately, they were blocked.
Ross, is it possible that David Grush might have conflated? I mean, was it Kona Blue that he was talking about, or was he talking about a completely different program?
I'm sure the Pentagon would love you all to believe that David Grush is a deluded person who has no idea what he's talking about. And that's certainly the line they're pushing at the moment. What I can tell you is that there is an abundance of independent, objective witnesses who back what David Grush says to the hilt. And this is slowly going to come out, whether the Pentagon likes it or not. And unfortunately, we have a situation now where the government is actively being, I believe, misled by people in the Pentagon who have determined to try and cover up and deceive the American public.
Ross Coulthart, how did they come up with Kona Blue? Like, how's that a nickname for a top secret program to reverse engineer? I mean, I always wonder how they do that. Ross, great to have you on the show. As always, we will continue to cover this as more documents are declassified and we read them. Thanks. So.
All right. So obviously, Ross has indicated in the past that he's one of the insiders. He knows what's going on. At least he knows the deception. He knows the story, the narrative that is being told by these things. But I think what's fascinating about it is that there is still a fight going on inside the government about this information. And I do believe that. I do believe that it's coming out, and it's for the purpose. I mean, we're pawns in this whole game, and they are too. And we're, in some way, hopefully, not playing their game, but they are, absolutely. And it's going to be a bizarre change of events here pretty soon. That's the whole point of this channel. What did you get out of that, Matthew? You probably got more out of it than I did since you have been in the military. Maybe you've been in some SAP programs, special access programs. I don't know. But tell me what you thought.
No, I haven't been in any special access programs. And even if I was, right, how much would I be able to say until they come and cut the cord for the broadcast? Because I know that people who are involved with that stuff, they have to sign a lot of paperwork, and it's just all in the interest of getting you in there to work on it. And I'm sure before you know about what it is, you're like, oh yeah, sure, why not? I'll put my expertise to work here. And then maybe you find out things that you're not so comfortable with, and they kind of scare you into it. But regardless, no, I have not been on any special access programs. The thing about the Pentagon trying to say that David Grush is crazy, have they said that? I don't know if I've seen quotes coming out from Pentagon officials talking about that, because a lot of the time David Grush, when he's giving these interviews, talks about how he has to go through his investigator general, right? Like he's always saying like, oh, I had to clear this with so-and-so, and that's why I'm able to talk about it. And there's a lot of things I'm not allowed to say. Well, man, if you're a whistleblower, then you say it all. You spill it out because you're going outside the system. That's the whole point of being a whistleblower. So he's not a whistleblower. I don't know what to designate him as officially. I like to think of him as a authorized disclosure agent. Like he's just been told he's allowed to disclose these things, so he's gone out and he's done it. publicly, and he's put his name down on the congressional record and said these things under under the threat of perjury, so he could potentially face legal repercussion if he were to be found out to be lying. But he hasn't, and I don't think he will. It's more of what I was saying with that whole tribalism and the politics that are involved and how there's a back and forth. I think that on the ground level and several levels up, if we think about this thing as like a pyramid scheme, right? Satan is running a pyramid scheme here. He sits at the very top of the pyramid, but he's got all these different layers and levels that go down and down and down. And at the very bottom, you don't have a very good view of what's going on around you. If you think about if you were that bottom row of a pyramid, you'd just be kind of looking around and it's like, okay, got some hills, got some trees, whatever. But if the higher up you are, the more you see over the hills, over the trees, and you're getting a better idea of what's going on. And I think that some of the infighting that happens between, like they were saying, the Department of Defense or Pentagon, whatever, that they're kind of like having an internal struggle. To some degree, I think that's actually happening. There are people who are genuinely believe that they're kind of supporting one side or another, but I think it's manufactured conflict. I think it's there for just the interest of keeping it an elusive topic and keeping people invested and getting them to take up arms, because that's really one of the best ways that you can motivate people into becoming invested and looking into this topic, is to say, okay, well, whose team are you on? What side are you on? And then all of a sudden, that's when people become subject matter experts of stuff. Mm-hmm. It's when you talk about people who, again, let's look at politics, right? If people are very politically inclined, they're going to talk about the issues on a level that the average person wouldn't be able to get into it. You'll hear them go back and forth. Like they'll discuss the economy. To the average person, you just look and I don't know, gas seems to be pretty high. I noticed that I can't buy eggs like I used to. Everything seems to be more so. But, if you get into the political ends of it, they can actually go back and forth and they'll have all these details. Mm-hmm. And it's because, to a certain degree, you've been indoctrinated into it. And it's necessary for you to be involved in the discussion. You have to have a level of knowledge. And I think that's part of what this is. It's okay, if there's this back and forth between governmental agencies, then it's on you as an individual to become invested, to educate yourself on the topics and determine whether or not what's being said is true or false.
Right. Yeah, and the government, just as you said, there's factions inside the government, and it's not just one entity that has a one brain think on this thing. You were referring to David Grutch and what people are saying about him. What had happened was, if I remember right, was that his medical information was leaked. And medical information is under HIPAA law, and so that stuff was leaked. It shouldn't have been leaked, but it was all in the military, and they were trying to discredit him somehow. But that's all, and so something was unhappy that he was leaking this stuff. But again, I think all this stuff is just to make people talk about it more. Oh, you have a talking point. Any publicity is good publicity, as they say in the media. So that's why I believe a lot of Hollywood stars say, "Oh, I'm of the liking the same gender persuasion." I'm trying not to use the term. I'm gonna get canned here on YouTube somehow, or I'm gonna be under some list. But all of a sudden,
you're already on the list, man. Way too late for that.
But I mean, that's interesting. So I'm gonna jump over to this. This is the actual stuff that was just released here. I'll put this in the show notes. Let me see if I can bring this up here. This is from, you can see up here, arrow.mil. And so this is the PDF that was uploaded. I'm going to go, and you can see out here, unclassified, and it has a lot of information in there. It talks about Kona Blue and all this stuff that was actually happening, or supposedly happening. As we know, they say things, they don't say things. But if you notice page 8 right here, and then page 9, on this right here, originally, I think it had page 8 and then a Harry Reid letter, which was very interesting because it talked about Lou Elizondo and ATIP. And that's missing out of the official document now. It's like they re-uploaded. I'm not sure what's going on. I still got to dig deeper into that. But this basically proves Lou Elizondo is legit, everything he's saying about this whole thing, at least that he was running this ATIP program. And so, not that I'm trying to piece this together for his sake, but I think it's very interesting that a lot of this stuff is just coming to light now, and like you said, it's a slow leak. It's a slow leak out the door, and we're gonna see some crazy stuff because even the devil's able to do physical deceptions, and that's gonna come. I believe that's gonna just knock everyone's socks off because everybody and their mom is saying, well, I'm not going to believe it until I actually see. I don't believe anything unless I actually see this stuff. And like seeing is believing. Well, it's going to happen. I believe it. And we're going to see some crazy stuff. But until that point, nothing has happened. And I'm not even going to worry about it. And it's because ultimately, who's in control? Well, we got God. It's in control, this whole thing. And we don't need to worry about it. Do you have any last thoughts before I'm going to jump into some clips that lead into this a little further?
Briefly, on the physical manifestation aspect of it, there's something that I've kind of war-gamed out in my head. Well, what if this is happening behind the scenes? And I can see it as something that likely has happened. I don't know how often it happens, but you have these special access projects, right? And they don't even know about the existence of one another, even if they're running parallel to each other. I've thought, what if there's one special access project that was working with technology that is, 20, 30, 50 years more advanced than what the public has, and they're like ordered to leave that technology somewhere, and then you have another special access project come and say, "Oh, we've had reports that there's a UFO crashed in this area. Send out the team to recover it," and then they're recovering technology that was actually developed by someone just next door to them that they don't even know, and neither of them knows that that's what it's going towards. It's just kind of being gamed out, because I imagine there has to be, to a degree, there's recovered stuff. I know they're saying that nothing's been recovered, but it's like you're saying, a lot of people are of the mind where I need to see to believe. Even Thomas in the Gospels, he wasn't there when Jesus was present with the rest of the apostles. He's like, look, until I actually see the nail holes and I see the hole where the spear went, when I put my hand in there, I don't believe it. Like, there's no way he came back from the dead. Like, you guys are crazy. I don't know what got into you. But then he had to have that moment of experience. He had to see, and not only see, but to handle and observe to believe. And I think that is another. That's an aspect of it's part of the human condition. And I think that in order for these projects to have as much steam as they have, to get the budgets, probably the mega budgets that we don't hear about, the hundreds of millions of dollars, the billions of dollars that have been spent in the UAP field, there has to be some type of, Mr. President, what do you think of this? And it's a ray gun or something, something ridiculous. But they need that. They need to have something physical, I think, in order to, otherwise it'd just be a bunch of hearsay of going around in circles. So I think there is probably a physical something. To what degree? I think we'll have to wait and find out.
Absolute. All right, this next clip is the meat of the program. We're going to really get into it now, but we're gonna transition because they actually talk about Kona Blue in Tucker's program here. But I animated, I added a little text message because I'm pretty sure who Tucker was talking to, and so, but don't take it as legitimate because I added this in there for effect. Let's get into that right now.
So I got this from someone in the U.S. government who's well, look. Let me just start by saying I don't know anything, but He sent me this. The above is 100% legit. I was read into this program but told never to tell anyone. It's now been released. As you can see, it began as a result of my old program, AATIP.
My old program.
I signed a document saying
Well,
I
it
would
says
never
Luis
talk about Kona Blue
Elizondo
and similar efforts. I can't believe that
in the
AARO
contact.
would have released it.
Yeah, but
I
let me pause
Yeah.
it.
I mean, here's what we do know is that
I'm going to pause it right there. Here's what we do know. We're going to really get into it, but I created the image. So I just want to make it absolutely clear. I put Lou Elizondo at the top. Yeah.
Oh, this is a visual aid.
Yes.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And-
it looked like something. It looked like something Jamie from the Joe Rogan podcast was pulling up on the screen. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying. So you're about to have people's heads spin here.
Well, he
Okay,
said
so
he said when he was reading the text, he said in my old program or something like that. And I was like, well, who ran the old ATIP program? He just gave it away. It was Lou Elizondo, who has been a big voice in this whole thing. So he's text messaging with Tucker Carlson. At least that's what I think. I don't think there is someone else who can say that is not my old program. That someone else that can say that this is my program other than Lou Elizondo. And so, anyway, I put that graphic up there. I just want to make that absolutely clear. But I
understand now. I was confused because I was confused before the clip, and then during the clip, I'm like, "What? Like they're actually just whatever." It's good. Yeah, thank you for the visual aid.
Lisa Milner. Lisa Milner says, "Hey fam, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe button, and share to all your social media sites." That's huge because, the more times you hit that like button, the more it goes out to more people. The more you interact with the YouTube application, commenting, sharing, anything like that, the more hits that this program gets, the more it sends out this to random people on the internet and that to hear the truth. So if that's something that you are passionate about, help us out by at least doing that. If not, join us on our program. We're our Patreon, patreon.com/strangenormal, and we can talk 24/7 on our Discord private group. Join us there. All right, let's get into what is he saying here? Tucker, tell us.
there's enough going on in the skies, but not just the skies, underwater, that the U.S. military has been forced to respond to it. So, like, move aircraft from one place to another because there are too many of these objects in the sky. That's actually happened. Chris Mellon just wrote a long piece about it. So it's real. The government is not controlling it. In fact, it's forcing the government, DOD, to respond. And we know that there is a real effort and has been underway for a long time to keep the public from knowing about it. But that's all known. That's established. I don't think any rational person would deny that. The question is, like, what is it actually? I mean, now is sort of the point where you have to ask, like, what is this? And, so that's the
How much of it do you
conversation.
think is ours?
Well, none of it's ours.
None of it.
In general, no. They can't control these objects. So, no, it's not American technology.
Well,
Or Russian or Chinese. It predates, all of that.
I'm going to pause right here just for a second. This is really fascinating because you have two of the different tribes here talking. But Joe Rogan is 100% bought and sold. New Age, evolution, the whole thing the public school teaches about whatever. And Tucker Carlson is 100% bought and sold on the idea that, I think... Oh, don't quote me on this, but I think he's on the other side, like Christian nationalism side. Everything should be Christian and all this other stuff. And so they're gonna bash heads real quick, and both of them are really quick. And so it's really interesting to go through these clips and listen back and forth to what they're saying. I had to listen to a couple times, not this clip, but some clips coming up. But so let's continue here because it gets really fascinating really quick.
well, some of it does, right? Like, for sure, the Kenneth Arnold sightings, that was really early on. That was like the early 1950s. He was seeing these flying saucers, these discs that were moving over mountains.
Well, right. I mean, the prophet Ezekiel writes about it in the
Right.
first chapter, wheels in the sky.
Yeah, that's a crazy one. boy, when you
Well,
read
it is
that,
crazy. If you read it, it's like, oh wow,
Yeah.
and
a wheel
so
within a
and not
wheel.
just the Hebrew scriptures, like it's all over every.
The Vedic texts.
Of course. So these are spiritual phenomenon. There's no evidence they're from another planet. I mean, I think that's the that's the lie, that they're from Mars. Look, space, the atmosphere is really well monitored, right? Both for defense reasons, but also because, like, it'd be nice to know when asteroids are coming. And there's no evidence, has never been any evidence that there are lots of these objects, these vehicles coming into our atmosphere from somewhere else, some other planet. There's no evidence of that at all. So they're from here, and they've been here for thousands of years, whatever they are. And it's pretty clear to me that they're spiritual entities, whatever that means. They're supernatural, and which is to say, supernatural means above the natural, above the observable nature. And they don't behave according to the laws of science as measured by people, and they've been here for a long time. And there's a ton of evidence they're under the ocean and under the ground. So, like, with that fact set, what do you conclude?
Let's pause it right there and see what he says. But right there, he's saying, Tucker's saying, absolutely. This is a spiritual phenomenon. I like to feel like I contributed a little bit to that. But I'm sure that Tucker has done his own research. He actually has quite a bit of research. At the very beginning of this program, he said, Matthew, he said, I can't send you an email. I don't have an email. I don't have the internet in my house. I don't even have cable. I don't have a TV. I have quit all that stuff. He said, well, Joe Rogan's like, how do you live? he said, text messages. That's all I do. I only text message. People send me articles and text message. So he has the internet. I mean, he can't not have the internet, but
through his phone.
Yeah, through his phone. Anyway, what are your thoughts?
Yeah. I agree with a lot of what Tucker has to say. It's just you have to ask what becomes the conclusion to all of this.
Yeah.
So if he's saying that it's not an observable thing, that they go to and from Earth, but they are here on Earth and they dwell on Earth, and he's talking about the Bible, and I'm not sold on the whole Ezekiel's wheels being UFO. Right. I think that it's an angelic being, a spirit being. I think it's a good spirit being. It's with God. It comes down in vision with God. And maybe the thing is, when I look at stuff like Revelation too, you see how there are four that come before the throne of God, and they look like different things. One looks like a man. It looks like a lion, I believe, an eagle, and a calf. I think those are the four that it looks like. But he's just saying that they look like that. Now, I wonder what the appearance of some of the angels are. I mean, do they all look like men? We know that when they come and they're interacting with mankind, that they do look like men. You see it in Sodom. That happened there. When Abraham entertained them, they looked like men. Joshua, I mean, I could go on and on. Mm-hmm. There have been these manifestations to Jacob, who became Israel, right? Wrestled with God. Yeah. So we have that, but then I do wonder if they have other physical appearances. What are the classifications there? I don't know. It's a question mark for me, but I do not believe that what Ezekiel was describing is a UFO coming down, as is understood by modern day people. Yeah, I mean, maybe it was an unidentified aerial phenomenon, whatever, but it's an angelic thing from God, not playing into whatever is zooming around right now. I don't think that it is of God. I think it's with the enemy, and I think that Satan and the fallen angels have been cast down to earth, and their habitat is now our habitat. They're stuck here with us, and for Tucker to say that they're under the ocean and under the ground, I don't necessarily think that has to be true, but it would play into the mythos that's been built up around just throughout human history. Because he's talking about, it's in the Bible, well, it's in the Hindu, the Vedic texts, and yeah, like you have. I always like to bring up Atlantis, this civilization that was out in the middle of the ocean, and then it sank down to the bottom of the sea, you have that element of a advanced civilization that became lost. And whether that's what they kind of want to present themselves as, I don't know. But there's just so much there that people can cling to and be sold on, like under the ground and
right,
and
yeah,
under the water. But
yeah.
the fact that they have to be here, it's not necessarily like he's saying they're coming from the moon or they're coming from Mars. They're coming from Earth because, well, they can't leave Earth. They're not allowed to. That's why I think they're here.
Yeah, and I'm not exactly sure when that started in the Bible. I know that at one point they will be bound to Earth, and that's in prophecy. I'm not sure if it's they already have or not. I got to look up that time frame. I'm not for sure. I got to research that a little bit. If someone has a quote or something that they can point to or a verse, that'd be wonderful. I'd be really appreciative of that. But the what's really funny, what's really strange about this whole thing is that well, let me put it this way. I've heard it said, some pastors have told me that the wheel within a wheel thing is more of describing the planetary alignment and all this other stuff that we were being seen up there, that the prophet was seeing, not necessarily the spiritual entities that were coming down. And then again, these things can appear as anything they want, so it could have been something. But at the same time, Pastor Doug, I used to work for him. He said on the program, it's a mystery. We're not exactly sure what that is, but there's a few different ideas that different people have for everything. And I just don't like the idea that people keep referring to it just because it's coming from some. We're getting theology from people who don't know the Bible, that don't want anything to do with the Bible, and they're saying, well, these things are UFOs.
It's convenient for them to reference Ezekiel's wheels, especially because it's like, I mean, we're talking about it and we haven't even read the scripture. Like, we should honestly pull up the scripture and just read, what does the Bible say? What is that encounter about? Because it's entered into the zeitgeist, right? It's just, if you mention, Ezekiel's wheels, everyone's like, oh yeah, Ezekiel's wheels, of course. But I guarantee you, the majority haven't even bothered to read the scripture. I've read the scripture, but like I said, I'm just talking about it right now. Like, it's not a good habit to get into. I think we should refer to the text. So if you want to pull it up,
I have it right here.
Let's look at it.
I'm going to have a lot of ads on the screen here, but Bible Gateway
That's
says.
Fine. Ignore it.
This is I think Ezekiel 1 verse 15, 16. You know what? Wait, 15, 16. Are they combining verses? Let me go up. Is this the?
This is the message? Oh, Brad.
What is going on here? I'm not even going to read from that. Let's go to something a little more accurate.
Yeah, you better before it starts cursing at you. The message is like.
Let's see here.
It's not even a Bible.
Now, as I beheld the living creatures, behold, one wheel upon the earth by the living creatures with his 4 faces. The appearance of the wheels and their work was like unto the color of beryl, and they beryl. Okay.
Yeah, it's a stone.
It's a stone.
It's like a precious stone.
What color is that? It was like the color of beryl. I don't even know what color that is.
It's kind of like a beige-ish color, maybe like similar to topaz. I could be wrong.
So is that the color? Is that the color we see when we're looking at UAPs? I think maybe they're mimicking that. I don't know. UAPs have this beige-looking, this yellow-looking appearance to them.
Oh no, I'm mistaken. It seems. Oh, I don't know. Beryl. It's like it's a couple of different. There's red beryl. I wonder what's the classic beryl here. It's kind of like a teal, actually. It looks like a greenish, bluish color.
This can't be all the colors of beryl. It's just
I know it's got all because like there's golden beryl, which is what I was thinking of. But I'm like, what is the standard beryl? What's the Bible talking about? Probably this greenish color.
All right. I probably shouldn't refer to anything called wizard. But anyway, let's go back to what the Bible was saying here. And the 4 heads, and they 4 had one likeness, and their appearance and their work was as it were a wheel in the middle of a wheel. When they went upon their four sides, and they turned not when they went. What? As for their rings, they were so high that they were dreadful, and their rings were full of eyes. Round. Oh, okay. This is where they get the idea that angels are this weird eye full of rings things round about them.
Right.
Okay, that's interesting.
Well, they say, this is like an angel, and angels look like big wheels with eyes, but then they also say, no, it's also like it's a UFO. It's like a flying saucer. Do you get it? Like the eyes are like windows or something? Like you need windows for whatever kind of travel they're doing? Submarines don't have windows.
I see that. Yeah.
Everybody knows. They don't actually have windows.
See, now I'm going to get a bunch of Burrell-colored shoes and stuff on my ads now that I Googled Burrell. You watch what happens here. I don't know what's going on. And when the living creatures went, the wheels went by them. And when the living creatures were lifted up from the earth, the wheels were lifted up. Huh. This is a weird text. Whithersoever the Spirit was to go, they went. There was their spirit to go, and the wheels were lifted up over against them, for the spirit of the living creatures was in the wheels. Okay, well, that is something, and I think it has something to do with obviously they're. I'll have to study it. I don't know. I'm hesitant to say anything about it on air. Because I truly think it's a mystery to a lot of people, even to the people that are most well read into this. But I think we should do probably a more in-depth study on this probably here pretty soon, because I think it's probably pretty relevant.
Right. Well, I'm glad that we got the scripture on air, so for everyone viewing, you can look at it, read along, leave a comment too, whatever you think is going on there. I'd be interested to know.
Yeah. Leave a comment on that, because we're just as baffled, but we would love to know exactly what was going on here. Yeah. If you have better study or have studied this, that'd be fantastic. So, were we done with that clip? What was I saying about that clip? I wasn't planning to go into that verse at all, and so I'm completely sidetracked here. We talked about, he said they're spiritual entities, right? Mm-hmm. All right, and
that no one has control over them.
Mm-hmm.
Not the United States, the Chinese, the Russian governments. They don't have any control over them, and that they predate them as well.
So let's see what else is said about this real quick. Watch this.
When did you start having this opinion that they were spiritual and that they've always been here? Like when did this?
Well, I didn't know anything about the topic until 2017. And
was that after the New York Times piece?
No, it was before. It was before, and the things that I saw, I was and am still a very conventional person. I'm 54. I grew up in this country in California, which was like every assumption about America I bought completely. Just completely.
What's with that table, by the way?
And I thought that everyone
so
who questioned those assumptions was bad.
It's like an altar.
I just bought into the system completely without even thinking about it, and I imagined that I was like some kind of free thinker, and I'm going against the grain. But like my core assumptions were the assumptions fed to me by the culture and the government, and I didn't even realize it. But anyway, I'd never really thought about UFOs at all, and I'd been in journalism since I was a kid, so of course I'd run into a lot of people who had crazy views on a lot of different topics. UFOs, 9/11, circumcision, like every whack job in the world you run into when you're covering stuff.
Fluoride.
I don't.
I just brushed with non-fluoride toothpaste this morning.
Me too.
Exactly. But probably unlike you, I didn't have any opinions like that. I was like, fluoride, come on.
I might have not gotten all the expletives out.
Yeah. UFOs, you're fucking crazy. You know what I mean? I just I had this reflexive. I'm ashamed of it. I'm not bragging about it, but it was 2017, and really it was the Trump campaign. It wasn't that I was like so in love with Trump, though I've always liked Trump because he's like hilarious and charming and all that. But I wasn't like a Trumper or anything. But it was watching that campaign And particularly his claim that they were spying on him. And I was like, really? You're not, the intel services and federal law enforcement, FBI, do not spy on presidential campaigns. Like, that's so out of the realm. That's so crazy. Like, that could never happen because, of course, there's no democracy in a system like that. And fundamentally, we're a democracy, an imperfect one. It kind of lumbers along, but, like, it's not fake. And then that turned out to be true. And I knew it was true. And that just blew my mind. So I began a process still ongoing of reassessing a lot of other things. Like, okay, well, if that was not true, what else is not true? And what else that they told me was a conspiracy theory might actually have some basis in fact. And then someone from, a DOD employee reached out to me and said, actually, there's a ton of evidence that this UFO thing is real. And really? And so I started doing segments on it when I worked at the TV channel, and there was like a lot of mockery, but I was like, I don't care. I'm just going to do this. And then, of course, the second you start, as you know better than anybody, you start talking about something, then people reach out to you, and some of them are deranged, but some of them aren't at all. So I just started getting a lot of information from people and meeting with people, mostly in private. Come to my house, let's talk. And I decided on the basis of what they told me, and then I talked to a lot of people about it, that actually this is really a very heavy-duty question, actually.
Heavy-duty.
It's not the little green men question. It's like a much bigger question. And it's really bad. It's really dark. And then I stopped. Then I was like, I don't want to know anymore because it's not helping me at all as a person. And I don't
what information did you get that made you feel like it's dark?
Yeah.
Well, it's so dark. Well, first of all, the deception is always bad. Like, lying is bad in it. And it's bad not just in a legal sense in that it can be illegal to lie, but it's bad. It's like bad for you. Like, it rots you. Like, being a liar makes you a bad person. When you lie, you are serving evil. There's a moral quality to it that's inescapable and very obvious, and only like advanced civilizations ignore that. Lying is bad. And so if you have lying at scale, which we have on this topic, it's inherently bad. Okay, so that's the first level. The deeper level is so if they're spiritual beings, which I believe they are, like it's a binary. They're either, you're on team good or team bad. You can assign any name to it you want, but like, what are these things? Are they good or bad? And I think some of them are bad. And if the U.S. government knows that, or elements, the people within the U.S. government know that, then they're serving a bad force.
Wow, that's a heavy statement right there. And so, did you catch that he said some are bad? If some are bad, and so I'm gonna go on a limb here and say that any that are appearing today that aren't claiming the name of Jesus Christ when they appear and helping to do good, I think are absolutely. They're not claiming the name of Jesus Christ. They're bad. And the majority we're seeing right now are bad, especially if they're doing bad things like killing people. And we're going to get into that. Tucker actually touches on this in just a moment. And that's part of the reason why he says that they are bad. There's a huge deception here. And I let him, I didn't cut the program because I let him go through his whole idea of how he started questioning the narrative, even in politics, because I thought that was fascinating. That led him into researching this UFO topic. And he said he talked to a lot of people, not just a few. He said he invited generals and he invited a lot of people over, and he realized that this is bad. This is really bad. And I don't think he's telling the entire story here as he talks about this whole thing, because he can't reveal everything. But he is going to go deeper into it as we go. Before I continue that next clip, do you have any thoughts on it, Matthew?
Yes, because he's talking about how I think it's pretty telling that he brought up lying being something that rots you. It's morally wrong, and I agree with him. I think God laid it out in how we're supposed to treat one another. That being the last 6 of the 10 commandments, it's thou shalt not bear false witness, and that's pretty all-encompassing of any lies and falsehoods that you could be putting out. So yes, we shouldn't be lying, and one of the ways that maybe we can determine if they are bad is that they'll be lying to us. But as for all these things that are coming, because I know it's like you're saying, the aliens, the angels that are showing up today are not angels of God, because they're pushing this deception and they're pushing confusion. Mm-hmm. And biblically, when we see an angel of God coming down to assist somebody, they don't sow confusion.
Right.
They help to explain things. I mean, Daniel specifically needed help to understand the dreams he was having and the visions he was receiving, and an angel came to assist him in understanding. It's to clear up confusion. And just in 1 Corinthians 14, 33, it says...
I just looked it up.
Yeah. For God is not the author of confusion, but of peace, as in all churches of the saints. So any of the ones that are showing up and they're perpetuating the lie and they're leading people around and around, even if they're claiming to be the good ones, we're fighting against the negative vibrations of the universe and we're the positive vibrations, we're the high vibration alien race here to assist you. If they're not straight shooting and they're not just flat out saying, hey, I'm an angel of God, I'm here for a purpose, I'm on a mission, the angels of God, they're on a mission too. Satan's angels are on a mission, but it's very self-serving. It's not to benefit humanity. The angels of God, they are being selfless, because yes, they're serving God by coming and delivering messages for humanity, but by that extension, they are serving humanity as well. That's a characteristic of the Most High God. That's why Jesus, he took on the form of a servant, and he helped people. When the apostles were arguing who is the greatest among them, Jesus went ahead and started washing their feet to display, okay, you know that I am the greatest among you. I'm God incarnate dwelling with you. And here I am washing your feet. I'm giving you the most basic form of service that a servant can give, and it's a display of his character. And that's ultimately, I think, again, because Tucker, I mean, he's thinking in the right ways. I worry about the conclusions that he'll eventually draw. I think he's still there are definitely aspects of him that are confused. I even saw some people in the live chat bringing up his red Kabbalah bracelet. That's something that I realized way back years ago when I was coming out of just this deception. I noticed many celebrities, Leonardo DiCaprio, Ariana Grande, and Tucker Carlson, are among people who wear little red bracelets which are associated with Kabbalah, which not biblical. You get in some really weird stuff there, but definitely there are beliefs that run counter to the scripture. So not a good thing, especially if he's been popping up wearing it recently. It's not doing him any favors. He should really cut that bracelet and put it in the trash. That's where it belongs, or in a fire. I mean, it'd probably be even better to burn the thing up so that no one else finds it and says, "Ooh, oh boy, it's a little red thing." Anyway, that being said, I'm just, again, Tucker is like one of those people that we've talked about before on the broadcast. I think it's important to keep him in prayer.
Absolutely.
And that he does come to the correct conclusions and isn't used as this
tool
weapon, tool of the enemy to lead people into deceit, but can actually be a champion of the one true God and say, wow, this is it. I get it now. We are the beings that are messing with the government. It's Satan and the fallen angels, and we can choose God, and Jesus is on his way, and we don't have to worship them. That would be so cool. Hopefully that's what happens. But we're going to just, stay tuned. I'm sure we'll be talking about Tucker in the future.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting to see him talk about this on such a popular broadcast.
Right. And it is really interesting to see what's going on here. And what we just went over was, how do you discover that they were bad? That's what Rogan asked. And now he's going to, why do you think they're spiritual? Why do you think these things are spiritual? Because obviously Rogan has a completely different take on this whole thing. And that's going to come out here pretty soon when they start, we're running back and forth. Watch this.
Well, when you say spiritual, what makes you draw that conclusion that they're spiritual?
What's the obvious? I mean, spiritual may be the wrong word. Supernatural. They're beyond nature as we understand it. I mean, obviously they are. I mean, just chart their physical behavior. It doesn't, it goes outside of what we understand about physics. No visible means of propulsion, coming at indescribable speed, hitting the ocean, continuing at speeds that are impossible undersea. I mean, in other words, if I take a 9mm round, 7.62 by 39, and shoot you at 50 yards underwater in a swimming pool, and it's even more intense in salt water because it's denser, you could catch the bullet if it even makes it to you, right? So if you have a craft, any object underwater that's traveling at 500 knots as measured by sonar, right there you're challenging our understanding of physics. Like, what is that? How can that be? So yeah,
they've tracked that. They've tracked things going 500 knots under the sea.
Yeah, really. Yeah, much faster than any object can actually go undersea. Yo, for sure. Oh yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on underwater, and a lot. And there's video of these things coming out of the sky into the water and also emerging from the water.
Right.
Yeah. So
it's all so blurry though.
I don't think it's
the
that
transmedium video.
Yeah, I don't think some of it's that blurry. I think some of it's crystal clear.
We just don't have access to it. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Just we haven't seen it.
Correct.
So they have some stuff
for sure. So, but there's just a lot going on underwater, and it's measured. And so, whatever. I mean, these are all, again, this is like the most obvious observable level of it. But then you just ask yourself, like, what is this actually? And, if there's been extensive knowledge of this for decades, like maybe 80 years at least, if not going back to the 30s, 90 years, to what end? So there are two possible explanations, obvious explanations. The first is the one you often hear, which is this is so heavy that if the public were to know about it, it would be just disruptive. It would be too scary. Like, you don't want to scare people for no good reason. There's nothing we can do about it. And you also don't want to suggest that, the U.S. military isn't capable of protecting the country, the homeland. And it does suggest that. If you can't control these objects in your airspace, and that's known, if they can't, that's known, okay? Then that suggests a limit to the power of the U.S. military, and you don't want to tell people that because then they won't believe that they're safe. I get it. But then there's a deeper level, which is like, okay, what's your relationship with these things? What is the U.S. government's relationship with these things?
Yes.
And there's evidence that there is a relationship and that it's a longstanding. And that raises a lot of questions about intent. And so what is that? And I just personally decided, and people have been hurt by these things. That's a fact. That's a fact. It's a knowable fact. It's a provable fact. And killed. And I'm not saying millions of people have been killed by whatever these things are, but people have been killed, and it's known because it's working its way through the courts out of the VA. So, I don't know, an object that is by definition supernatural, it's above the laws of nature as we understand them, and that has resulted in the deaths of people. We don't spend enough time thinking about what that adds up to. Not good, actually, not good.
How many people do you think have died from these things?
I don't know, but I mean,
And is it radiation sickness? Is it what's the cause
So the
of
person
death?
that I talked to, I interviewed someone who was a Stanford medical school professor who's out there and worth talking to, by the way. And
You talking about Gary Nolan?
That's exactly who I'm talking about. He's effectively an expert witness in these cases, so he's an expert in brain injury. Do you know him?
Yeah.
Yeah. Entirely credible person. Checks all the boxes that I care about. He's got patents, so he's like a lot of Stanford University professors. He's independently rich. I mean, he flew to. I live in a remote place, and he flew to my place at his own expense because he wanted to tell his story. So he's got no profit motive here. He's the most highly credentialed person at the university, practically, Stanford Medical School. We consider that a big deal. And he's worked on this for over 10 years. Assessing the injuries to U.S. servicemen from being in close proximity to these objects or having contact with these objects. And his conclusion, as you know because you've talked to him, is that there's some kind of energy coming off here that scrambles people's brains or kills them. And it's not exactly radiation, at least in his telling to me. So anyway, but the point is, people have died.
Yeah.
And so, it does raise a lot of questions about, like, what the hell, right? What the
Yeah.
hell? American citizens have died, and you're hiding it. Why are you hiding that? Why would you hide that?
Perhaps because they don't have any explanations. Because it's so beyond our comprehension that they're still trying to piece it together. Like,
Pause it there for a second. Interesting. We've gone over this quite a few times already, talking about this this whole thing, how there have been deaths according to this thing, and one of and Joe Rogan Joe Rogan, Tucker Carlson is what is saying here is that this is one of the identifying factors, the reason why I believe this thing is bad, is because it's killing people. And on the other side of things, you got to understand both sides of the argument here in order to talk to people about this. The other side of the argument says, well, these things, it might just be that we get behind their afterburner or something like that. And they might be just vehicles that they don't know. And it's an effect of us not understanding it. Like, we don't understand nuclear power way back then. We burnt a lot of people before the bomb. That seems reasonable, but we have to factor in their worldview on this thing. The worldview is that these things are very smart, and they're much, much bigger than us, and they're much, much smarter than us, and they can know a lot more than us. Well, if they know so much more, why are they hurting us? Let's go along that worldview just for a second. If they know so much about life, about this reality, about our world, and they've been here for so long, why are they allowing us to die? Why are these military individuals being killed by these things? Incidentally, if I might get into speculation just for a moment, it's really interesting to me to know that these things, it's not just radiation that's causing deaths. They're seeing brain trauma through some shaking of the brain. That's what Gary Nolan said in a previous podcast. And so it makes me wonder if this same, I don't know what to call it, heat, radiation, vibration, trauma, or whatever it is, would it have the same effect on someone that was covered in the righteousness of Christ? I don't know. I'm just going to leave that thought there for a second, because I think ultimately God wants us. Maybe it's just an after effect of meeting these spiritual entities. Maybe they're actually doing something purposefully. I don't know. But it is really interesting as we get to the kingdom. I'm going to ask a lot of questions about that, because it's really fascinating on what that's all about. And then we're going to get into after this, we're going to get into Joe Rogan's worldview, and that Tucker corrects. And this is the exciting part. So what do you think, Matthew? Have any thoughts? You don't have to, but if you have anything, I want to include you.
Something that stood out to me earlier into that clip was Tucker talking about how there are more crystal clear there's more footage that obviously has been made public, but that the military has. And that's something that I brought up previously, is that I think the military and the instruments that they use to measure this stuff is going to eventually, you'll see more and more footage, I think, coming out, and it's going to get clearer and clearer, because that's some of the most sophisticated technology that humanity has for actually capturing this stuff. And just so people are aware, at 500 knots that he was describing going underwater, that's the equivalent to like 575 miles per hour. So very, very fast, cutting through the water, especially if it's cutting through the water at that speed and not making any disturbances.
Right.
You gotta wonder what's going on. I think they can travel much faster than that. I think they probably just traveled just fast enough to be really, really impressive and to show up on the sensors. But I bet they can travel so fast that the sensors can't meaningfully pick it up, and it just appears to be a little artifact, just a little blip with the sensor. Not sure what that was, but probably nothing, because that happens all the time.
I believe what people say, what our scientists are saying about physics today is true, in that this. There's much more to it than we even realize. And we don't fully understand physics. We don't understand it. We think we understand physics, but we don't really. And the reason is, and this is, I've heard it said it's good to speculate on how amazing heaven would be one day. And so I'm going to do that just for a moment. This isn't just Brad's surmisings, the Bible according to Brad. This is going to be something, this is interesting to me. When we were, as Adam was and Eve was, perfect beings on the planet, there wasn't a time where we were concerned about whether or not we were going to step on a grasshopper, whether or not we were going to smash an ant, or whether or not we were going to accidentally, run over or sleep on a snake or something like that. They didn't hurt us, but we didn't worry about that. And just the other day, I was going down the road, and I live in Tennessee, and we have all kinds of wildlife here. Man, I had forgotten the 10 years I had been out of Tennessee, and in California, I was like, came back to Tennessee, and I was like, man, there's so much wildlife here. I never have to worry about in California whether or not I'm going to hit a squirrel or not. I mean, at least where I was living. But there's you got to worry about deer, you got to worry about raccoons, you got to worry about possums, you got to worry about snakes, you got to worry about all these things that come out onto the road. And this giant snake came out of the road, and it was this huge black snake, and my wife was looking down at something on her phone, and I went, wow, wow. I personally, I hate killing something, even if it's rightly so should be killed. I saw a scorpion the other day. I flushed it down the toilet. But but I mean, come on. When we were in heaven, do you think that we should absolutely worry about stepping on these things? I think this is my surmisings, but also I want to think about heaven for a second here. I don't think we're going to have to worry about that, because I think physics is going to be completely different. We, as spiritual entities, are going to have something different physically about us that allows us to not have to step on these things. Not. I don't know if our foot goes through it, and our beings, the two physical beings, can be in the same place at the same time. I don't know, but I know these entities seem to be able to. They seem to be able to go through things or do weird things. I can't confirm that, but I think it's interesting to think that there's much more to physical than we even surmise. You might have a different opinion, but there's something else going on here, and I think it's going to be fascinating. Things beyond we can even imagine in our perfect world. I'm going to leave it at that.
Cool. Yeah. I do think it's going to be very different in the new Earth. I think things will be familiar but new. I think it's going to, certain things we're going to, oh yeah, of course, this. But then the experience of what that is going to be so much more pronounced, and basically living as we're intended to live rather than right now, which just feels like, honestly, we're just getting by. We're just getting by in this world that is being worn out, and we're in bodies that are riddled with all sorts of afflictions, and sin is just rampant. That type of stuff is not how we're meant to live. I mean, it's a testament to how we can adapt and try to make it through a world like this, but obviously we'd all be completely lost in this like dark, evil pit if it wasn't for God. God didn't give up on us and has paved the way for us to experience a better way of living. And I believe it will be life as He intended us to live in the beginning with Him. Yeah. It's going to be nice.
Absolute. Let me see here. I'm getting messages from my marketing team saying we're having some stream problems. If anybody's having any stream problems out there, let me know. And I'm going to take a photo of any error message that I get out here. But I'm going to go into this next clip. This next clip is fascinating. While I take some screenshots. Everyone's amazed by the scorpion's comment. Yeah, I don't know if the scorpion. I hope it didn't come back up to my toilet. Okay, here we go.
I would wonder how much interaction they really do have with these things. Like, if I was from another planet or if I was some interdimensional being, I don't know how much I'd give a shit about the president. I don't know how much I'd give a shit about the government. I would probably look at this infantile race, this species, this bizarre territorial apes with thermonuclear weapons, this very weird species. I'd probably look at them as very chaotic, and I wouldn't really have much concern for who's running it, especially if they have the ability to travel at insane speeds and go undetected. And
well, it depends. Like that. Okay, so the template that you're using to understand this is like science fiction, right? These are an advanced race of beings from somewhere else. But the template that every other society before us has used is a spiritual one. Mm-hmm. There is a whole world that we can't see that acts on people, a supernatural world that's acting on us all the time for good and bad. Every society has thought this before ours. In fact, every society in all recorded history has thought that until, I'll be specific, August 1945, when we dropped the atom bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and all of a sudden the West is just officially secular. We're God. There is no God but us. And that's the world that we have grown up in, but that's an anomaly. Like, no one else has ever thought that. There's never been a society that thought that. Every other society has assumed, and they've had all kinds of different explanations, and the details differ, but the core idea does not differ, and never has differed from caves until now, that we're being acted on by spiritual forces at all times. And so to someone born before or living before 1945, I think it would have been much more obvious that this is the thing that every society has written about. And in fact, that battle, that unseen battle around us, that spiritual battle, has like been the basis of every society, of every religion, not just Christianity. So like it just, once you discard your very, very recent assumptions, relatively speaking, about how the world works, you're like, well, that kind of seems like the obvious explanation, right?
It's not that obvious to me.
Okay. All right. We're going to continue.
Sets his face after he laughs.
It's not that obvious to me.
That goofy Tucker laugh. He always got some.
Okay. I want to continue. This next clip is continuing on with his worldview. I want to hear his response to this, and we'll comment on it.
So what's more obvious, do you think?
Well, I don't think there's an obvious explanation. I think if I had to guess, some of this stuff is ours. And some of these things are propulsion systems that they theorized way back in the 1950s. Anti-gravity propulsion systems, things that can operate without igniting fuel and pushing something out, that they operate in some completely different way that utilizes gravity and almost can instantaneously transport to new places, essentially fold space-time. I don't know. So there's things that the government does where they have these programs, and the people that are sworn into these programs, whether they're the physicists or the metallurgists or whoever these people are that are working on these programs, they don't tell anybody. All their phones are monitored. Everything's monitored. There's a culture of secretism that's pretty intense, and it's not inconceivable that over the course of the last 70 plus years of them theorizing and then eventually implementing some of these things, that they've developed drones that can move in ways that the people that understand conventional propulsion systems could not imagine. And that they've figured out a way to do this and to keep it secret. And we're probably not the only ones working on these things. But where did they get that information? And have you know Diana Pasulka?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know her work?
Yeah.
Like, they describe these crash crafts as donations, which is fascinating. They're left there. The crashed retrieval program, the crashed UAP retrieval program, is essentially they're going like, figure this out. We're going to crash this thing here. You figure this out. And the question is, if that's true, okay, where are these things coming from? Are they, if there's something that is so advanced that it's decided to leave us a little trinket for us to back engineer, Is that from another dimension? Is that from here? Is that from some realm that we just don't have access to? Is it from another planet? We have drones that are on other planets right now. We have a drone on Mars. We have, the lunar rovers. We have satellites that we send to observe and photograph other planets. We just got really high detailed photographs of Jupiter. They're pretty amazing. But if something was like us on another planet but lived uninterrupted with technology advancing for 1,000 years, 10,000 years, 1,000,000 years more than us, what would that be like? And how much would we be able to understand of what we're seeing? What would we be able to see? And this idea that we monitor our skies, sure, but if something just appears and disappears essentially instantaneously, if something literally can fold time, can fold space, and just traverse between immense distances almost instantaneously, what are we going to see? What are we going to see? And also, what kind of detection systems do we have? We have radar, we have visual, we have a bunch of different military-based detection systems to look out for enemy crafts and airships and all that stuff. But if you're dealing with something that's 1,000,000 years more advanced than us, how much would we be able to detect?
Well, so I think we're pointing to the same question. I mean, I have no doubt that the U.S. government has technology that we don't know the details of. That makes sense.
Sure.
All right, pause it right there just for a second. I want to talk about this agenda of the gifts. We've talked about this a little bit before on this channel. It might seem like a little bit of a repeat, but I know we've always got new people watching. We know what this is about. This is called the Prometheus effect. And if there is stuff being given, it's not crashing. They've said that. They said absolutely it's being given as a gift. They call these gift donation locations that they go to, and they find these things. And they say they want to reverse engineer. They want to use these things for war technology. Well, if you look back in the history, there's something called the Prometheus agenda effect. It was a god, I think, back then. Maybe you know more about it than I do, but they gave man supposedly fire in order and in exchange for some kind of worship or some kind of thing that they were supposed to do for them. These entities.
It was Prometheus wanted to benefit humanity by bringing them fire. He was like a lesser god. Mm-hmm. And then when Zeus and the rest of the higher gods found out about it, they decided to punish Prometheus for all of eternity for his transgression against them. And people, you see it. Prometheus has become a type for Lucifer, because Lucifer is the light bringer, and Prometheus brought the light of fire from Olympus to mankind. So people have kind of made this correlation. But Prometheus in the Greek tradition would be considered more heroic, more of a benevolent being coming down, and his punishment would be unfair. So when people take that idea and they ascribe it to Satan, they say, well, Satan was just trying to allow humanity to eat from the tree because it would benefit mankind to have the knowledge of good and evil, that we wouldn't die and be like gods. And they buy into the lie, and they say that God was unfair in punishing Satan. And
yeah, it's the whole Gnostic.
It's a Gnostic inversion, but people use the Prometheus myth from Greek mythology to kind of parallel Satan and what he did.
Right.
Which I don't think is a coincidence at all. I think Satan probably is the originator of that story and wanted to paint himself in a more sympathetic light.
Of course, as he always does. I'm gonna skip this next one, number 5. I'm just gonna push it down. We're gonna continue on to the worldview, and then we're gonna look at number 5, because this one's a little bit weird. And but this next one continues in the worldview, and then we'll dig into the next. Watch this.
To your point, like, we can't see them coming into our atmosphere because they don't want to be seen. Well, then why do they want to be seen by people on Earth? Like, if the technology is that advanced, and clearly it is, why do they make themselves visible in the first place?
Well, when we study primates, one of the things that we do. Did you ever watch Chimp Nation on Netflix?
I don't have a TV, but I like the sound of it. Yeah.
It's an amazing documentary on Netflix that details these embedded scientists in the Congo. And what's really fascinating about it is that this group of scientists, or related scientists, have been there for 20 plus years. So these chimps have become entirely accustomed to having human beings near them. So there's very specific rules. You stay within 20 yards of them. If they come closer, you back up. You never have food, ever. You can't bring any food there because they'll fuck you up and just steal your food. If they find out you have food,
and they're formidable
you're
too.
in real trouble. Oh, yeah, they'll tear you apart. And they kill each other, so they'll definitely kill you. And so when they have done this, the chimps have become accustomed to them being there, and the chimps behave completely normally. The chimps see them as just an innocuous part of their environment. They're not food, and they're not enemy. They don't ever intrude. They don't try to challenge them. They don't make eye contact, so they don't worry about the people at all. So they behave completely like chimps. And if I was an advanced species and I was studying people and I wanted the human beings to eventually kind of catch up, right? Like you're introducing technology that they call donations, crash vehicles. Figure out what fiber optics are. Here you go. Check this out. Figure this out. Try to figure that out. Maybe it'll take you decades. Maybe it'll take you more. But you are accelerating the technological evolution of this advanced species on this planet. And one way to do that would be...
For what purpose, I wonder?
Well, that's a very good question. My belief is that biological intelligent life is essentially a caterpillar. And it's a caterpillar that's making a cocoon. And it doesn't even know why it's doing it. It's just doing it. And that cocoon is going to give birth to artificial life, digital life. It's going to give birth to a new life form. And I think we're real close to that. I think we're way closer to that than most people would ever want to admit.
I agree.
And I think...
But can we assign a value to that? Is that good or bad?
That's a good question. It depends. Universally, I think it's the path. I think it's what happens. I think... What this thing is, if you extrapolate, if you take
so uncomfortable
the
talking
concept of a sentient artificial intelligence that has the ability to utilize all the information that every human being has on Earth at a level of computing that's far beyond the capabilities of the human mind, and all of our supercomputers that currently exist, because it'll design much better computers. It'll use quantum computers. It'll have the ability to recode things and change things. It'll make better versions of itself. So instead of biological evolution, which is very slow, it takes a long time, relatively. It's pretty quick, really, when you think about it. Like how long, it's not that long to go from being a single-celled organism to being a human being flying a plane. Really, relatively, over the course of a billion years, if you think about how long the universe has been around. But it's slow compared to technological evolution. I mean, 100 years ago, we didn't have shit. And now we could send videos from your phone, and it'll hit New Zealand in a second.
For sure.
It's crazy. The stuff that we have now is beyond imagination. It's essentially magic for people 100 years ago. If that keeps going, it's ultimately going to lead to a life form. And if that life form has now untethered, it doesn't have any problems with biological evolution. Now it's just about information and implementing the technology that's available and then increasing that technology and making it better and better. It essentially becomes a god. Because if you give it enough time, it doesn't... It has the ability to make better versions of itself, which will in turn make better versions of itself. It has the ability to utilize everything. It has the understanding of everything that exists in the universe. It's black holes, dark matter, everything. And it probably has the ability to harness that or even reproduce that. So if you take artificial sentient intelligence and it has this super accelerated path of technological evolution, and you give artificial general intelligence, sentient artificial intelligence far beyond human beings, you give it 1,000 years alone to make better and better versions of itself, where does that go? That goes to a god.
First stage of the Industrial Revolution consisted of people building machines that were stronger than the human body.
Right.
Right? So the steam-powered loom.
Sure.
The backhoe.
Combustion engine.
Combustion engine. They replace muscles.
Right.
Right. So that's what the machine does. It becomes stronger than the human body. The second stage, which we're in the middle of, consists of creating machines that are more powerful than the human mind. That's what computing is. And I would say AI or supercomputing is just that exponentially.
Yeah.
But that doesn't make it a god in the sense that the machine, however powerful it is, any more than a backhoe is a god because it can dig a trench faster than 100 men, it is still something that people created. So the story hasn't really changed. At the center of the story are people, and their creative power may lead to unintended consequences, but the machines that they build did not make the universe and did not make people. People made the machines.
Right.
So but I would say the part I agree with is there's a spiritual component here for sure. People will worship AI as a god.
Yeah.
AI, Ted Kaczynski was likely right, will get away from us. We will be controlled by the thing that we made. All those are bad. Like, that's just bad. And we need to say unequivocally, it's bad. It's bad to be controlled by machines.
Right.
Machines are helpmates. Like, we created them to help us, to make our lives better, not to take orders from them. So I don't know why we're not having any of these conversations right now. We're just acting as if this is like some kind of virus, like COVID, that just spreads across the world inexorably. There's nothing we can do about it. Just wait to get it. It's like, no. If we agree that the outcome is bad, and specifically it's bad for people, we should care what's good for people. That's all we should care about. Is it good for people or not? If it's bad for people, then we should strangle it in its crib right now.
Right.
And why not just blow up the data centers? Like, why is that hard? If it's actually going to become what you just described, which is a threat to people, humanity, life, then we have a moral obligation to murder it immediately. And since it's not alive, we don't need to feel bad about that.
So I let that go and wax long like that because I wanted to give Joe at least a running chance. He was I could tell his body actions was so uncomfortable talking about this because he doesn't know. But he's basically talking about how absolutely, well, this whole thing is happening for a reason, and this is just a natural progression, and it's going to become our God. Well, that was quite a statement to say, and I want to hear what you think about, because you've done a lot of study on AI and stuff. So what do you think about that whole thing?
It's really refreshing to see Joe Rogan getting pushback on his own show, because so often it doesn't happen. Compare this to a conversation that he would have, this conversation with like Elon Musk, and it would go back to Elon. He's like, yeah, you're right. Yeah. It's going to be a god. It could already be a god. Yeah. Wow. Could already be a god. Whoa.
Yeah.
That's usually what it is, but we have Tucker Carlson here giving some pushback and saying that's actually a really good analogy, talking about the backhoe, and, a piece of construction equipment. You could go back in time and tell people there will be a machine that can do the work of 1,000 men. Or it could do the work of 1,000 men. It must be a god. No, it's not a god. It's a piece of machinery. This is we use it for construction, and it works well. And yeah, we did it to expedite the process. So that was really refreshing just to see that pushback. Talking about AI, it gets pretty hazy, because it's like Tucker saying, the forerunners, the people who are at the cutting edge of AI, are all saying the same thing, that it's so incredibly dangerous and that it could enslave humanity and it's going to go off the rails and go rogue. That's what they all say. There's nothing like really very positive that's said about AI. It's like, oh, we'll get some short-term benefits, sure, but eventually it'll dominate. It will do it'll have total control over everything. And I do wonder if it plays into the end time deception. This is something I want to pose to the audience, and just as a question that I've had, and I ask myself the question periodically because I wonder, how is this going to play out? So if Satan is going to come and impersonate Christ, he must defeat Antichrist. What will the false Antichrist be? We know that the false Christ will be Satan, coming to impersonate Jesus, but what will the false Antichrist be? What will be propped up so that he can topple it over and say, I have done it, I've defeated Antichrist, that prophecy is fulfilled, get ready for the new heaven and the new earth, people, because we're going to Mars, and everything is about to change down here. That could be, I think that the quote-unquote Antichrist could be an AI, like an artificial general intelligence that has gone rogue and poses a threat to humanity, and ultimately, like, we've dug our own holes so deep, and now all of a sudden there's this thing lording over us, and that's when they have to step in and intervene. It's like, it was bad enough you were destroying the planet. It was bad enough that you were playing around with nuclear weapons. It was bad enough that you have poverty and all this other terrible stuff going on, but once you made that AI, we knew that was the time to act. So we have, and we've saved you. And, get in line for the worship.
And we know that the scripture has said that there's many antichrists that have come and gone, and there are many that will come. They are anti-Christ, but we're talking about the antichrist, and I definitely think that I'm too wondering how this is going to play into the end times. How does this godlike consciousness play into the end times? I'm not sure. I do know that Satan's going to manifest himself as Christ and pretend to be God, but I wonder what's going to lead up to that. And so it is a very, very thought-provoking thing to think about. But I don't know. Leave it at that. But I think there's a couple nuggets in here. I want to continue unless you have any other thoughts on this.
No.
Okay, here we go.
Let's see these nuggets.
These are the nuggets. This is we're going to jump into nuclear weapons just for 2 clips, and then we'll continue.
But like, where did it come from?
Right.
I'm not even sure. This is a separate question, but related. I'm not sure we really know where nuclear technology came from. Actually,
Really?
Yes.
Like the Manhattan Project?
Yeah, like we know the Manhattan, and we know something about the Manhattan Project, but like, where exactly did that? It came from Germany. German scientists were working on it. Okay. It's a separate conversation, but the one person I know who's really pushed it, was writing a book on it. Who's a trustworthy person and a friend of mine. I know you know him. Said to me, actually, I spent a year working on this, and the closer I got to, like, okay, but what's the genesis? Like, where did this? What was the Isaac Newton apple on the head? Oh, gravity's real moment for fission. Not clear. Weird.
I'm going to pause it there just for a second. If anybody knows what book he's talking about, I like to read that book because I have my own theories, not based in anything at the moment, but I'd like to dig into that study as well. Where did nuclear technology come from? Because I have heard whispers here and there of it said that they came through dreams. They came through spiritual entities that told us how to do some of this stuff. And if that's the case, we got both sides here. I mean, we got them playing both sides here. Hey, let's make the humans create this terrible technology that we know they'll use for terrible things, kind of like the Prometheus idea, and then cause major catastrophes on Earth, which will lead to the final deceptions and the end of the world. It's full circle. And so I'm really curious to see if we can dig further into that. That'd be something I would do a full show on. But we have one more clip about nuclear technology, unless you have something to say.
When he talks about, it came from Germany and they were working on it in Germany, I think he's alluding to the fact that Nazi Germany was steeped in occultism. Mm-hmm. And that's like that's not something even. There's a lot of things that sometimes you'll hear about, and it's like, oh, kind of weird. Oh, they're using this or that. There are books written about Nazi Germany and the occult, and how like even the swastika. Like that's not that they didn't invent that symbol to say, okay, let's make it like let's show how oppressive we are, and we're gonna put this on everything. No, they did it because they believed it had inherent power in it. That's just a taste of that. But I believe that is what Tucker is alluding to, is that this knowledge that humanity gained about nuclear technology was done through the occult practices of the Nazi Party in Germany at that time. So. Interesting connection to make.
Yeah. Amanda says the tech came from worshiping the owl thing. What's the owl thing? Man, I know what that is. That's the California owl
that would be
thing.
in Bohemian Grove.
Bohemian Grove. That's what I was thinking.
But
Yeah.
like,
I got, like I said, I have nothing to base this on right now, but I've heard inklings of that just through research from years and years ago.
it's just from worshiping Satan in one of the many forms he comes in. Because Satan, unlike the one true God, likes to masquerade as a bunch of different things and will appeal to whoever it is. So if you want to worship him as an owl god, go for it. If you want it to be a hawk, yeah, we got that too. He'll be whatever. He'll be a rain cloud. Like, look back through humanity. The sun is one of his favorite things.
Right.
You know, sun worship. So, yeah, no matter what form it was taking, if you're not worshiping the one true God, and you are instead giving your worship to another entity, that's Satan. He's going to step in every single time. He doesn't care. He'll change costumes. He'll dress in drag. I've said that before. The goddesses, that's Satan in drag.
Right.
That's what he's willing to stoop to for worship. Okay? Not our God.
Not our God.
Again, always compare. Compare the two. I love it. I love when it's a character study. When you just take it and you lay it out and you say, okay, here's Satan dressed up as a woman, and here's Jesus Christ. It's like, where are we going here?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Exactly. But yeah, send me anything you got if you know where this nuclear technology came, or if you know who that guy was that he's talking about. My good friend, you know him too. He's writing a book on this. Who is that? I want to read this book. Anyway, let's one more clip on this nuclear thing.
Well, you could say the same about the atomic bomb, right?
Yes, you could.
And you could say that we have to develop it like Oppenheimer felt before the Nazis did.
I love that. How'd that work? How'd that work?
Well,
I love, by the way, that people on my side, I'll just admit it, on the right, have spent the last 80 years defending dropping nuclear weapons on civilians. Like, are you joking?
Right.
That's just like prima facie evil.
Yeah.
If you can't, if we hadn't done that, then this, that, the other thing, that was actually a great savings. Like, no, it's wrong to drop nuclear weapons on people. And if you find yourself arguing that it's a good thing to drop nuclear weapons on people, then you are evil. Like, it's not a tough one, right? It's not a hard call for you. It's not a hard call for me. So with that in mind, like, why would you want nuclear weapons? It's like just a mindless, childish sort of intellectual exercise to justify, like, oh no, it's really good because someone else will get it. How about no? How about like spending all of your effort to prevent this from happening? Would you kill baby Hitler, famously?
Right.
So I don't know why we're sitting back and allowing this to happen if we really believe it will extinguish the human race or enslave the human race. Like, how can that be good?
All right, we're going to pause it there. So he's comparing this UFO concept and this whole thing of with nuclear weapons. If it's not good, why in the world are we continuing to allow it to happen? This is absolutely crazy that we should continue it this way. And I think it was a valid point. Why continue looking into something that is obviously has bad characteristics on it? And that's not to say that this thing will eventually I think it's going to persuade people like this. We've done good things for you. Look, we stopped this, and we stopped that, and we told you about this disaster coming. And look, we're so good to you. All you have to do is just listen to us a little bit more. Come and listen to us some more, and we'll tell you everything you need to know. Any thoughts before we continue? We got one more clip where Joe is corrected by Tucker on another thing that he's thinking about.
Oh, keep it rolling then. Yeah, if there's more of that, then yeah, I want to see it.
Here we go.
But if evolution is real, and if there is this constant, I don't know, but it's
wow.
visible. Like you can measure it in certain animals.
You can measure adaptation.
Yeah.
But there's no evidence that in fact, I think we've kind of given up on the idea of evolution. The theory of evolution as articulated by Darwin is
this is cool.
True, right? In what sense?
Well, in the most basic sense, the idea that, all life emerged from a single cell organism and over time, and there would be a fossil record of that, and there's not. And
there's not a fossil record of transitionary species, like species that are adapting to its environment.
There's
and they
tons
develop...
of record of adaptation, and you see it in your own life. I mean, I have a lot of dogs. I see adaptation in dogs, through the litter to litter. But no, there's no evidence at all that zero, that people evolve seamlessly from a single cell amoeba. No, there's not. There's no chain in the fossil record of that at all. And that's why you don't actually hear people, you hear them make reference to evolution because the theory of adaptation is clearly, obviously true. But Darwin's theory's totally, that's why it's still a theory almost 200 years later, No, we have not found that at all. And I can't even guess. I mean, I have my own theories on it, but they're not proven.
What are your theories?
God created people, distinctly, and animals. I mean, I think what every person on Earth thought until the mid-19th century, actually.
Right, but
it's not a new idea.
They didn't have computers. They didn't have a general understanding that we have today of the process.
Do you think we understand more now?
Yes.
Really?
You don't think that we understand more today?
We understand way less. We understand so little that we're actually sitting here allowing a bunch of greedy, stupid, childless software engineers in Northern California to flirt with the extinction of mankind. So no, previous generations would be like, what? No, stop.
It's instances that I love Tucker Carlson's complete brutal honesty. He's a
like I said, you don't get that. You do not get that on Joe Rogan's podcast. That was really cool. Yeah, because that's something that I came around to, is the whole evolutionary idea, is that adaptation. That's what it's all about. That there are genes inherently within the different species that, depending on whether or not, it's like a switch, right? Whether if it's turned on, if a certain combination's there, then it can produce that effect and it can adapt to whatever the environment is. And I think that just goes, again, to show the brilliance of God, having all of these species that are capable of adapting to the world that we live in right now. Really cool. But the evolutionary thing, yeah, because I was, I don't know, I was baffled. Recently, I forget what it was, I was watching some nature documentary. I like to watch nature documentaries, but you're always going to get some of the propaganda interjected into it. And they was talking about whales, and it's like, yeah, whales came from this certain common ancestor. And I looked it up. I'm like, what is it? And this is like a little shrew thing. It's like a mammal on land with fur and everything. They're like, yeah, it decided to crawl back into the ocean because it wasn't finding enough food on land. It came out of the ocean, evolved into this mammal with the legs, said, oh, there's not any food here, and then they crawled back into the ocean and became a giant whale. This is one of the evolutionary tracks. I'm just like, okay. And again, it's like, where's the fossil record to show the transition from this little shrew thing to giant whale? You're not going to find it because it's not there. That didn't happen. And I believe that there are also species of animals that have gone extinct over the Earth's lifetime. I think part of what's going to be exciting about the new Earth is seeing all of the fauna, the vegetation that's been wiped out, the animal species, birds, fish, what have you, just on Earth that are missing. And just how much do they contribute to the ecosystem as well, I think. Be very interesting to find out, because all the animals, that there's a harmony there, and God put that in place. I think that's really cool. I don't know. I really liked hearing that from Tucker. Wow. I'm again, like I said, we need to pray for everybody. Obviously, that's I think that goes without saying. even people who do evil things to you. I mean, Jesus, he said that we have to pray, and he even demonstrated that when he was carrying the cross of forgive them for they know not what they do. Like that, what a powerful prayer. I would have a very hard time praying that type of a prayer if people were actively putting me to death. Right. I would need to be filled with the Spirit to have a prayer like that. So incredible. But Tucker Carlson. I'm saying to pray for Tucker Carlson here, because I like what I'm seeing. I like the pushback. I like this just boldly saying that we were created by God. That's huge. I don't know. Yeah, I know. Trust me, folks, I am not an optimist when it comes to this type of stuff. I'm on more of the side where I see politicians, celebrities, news anchors, what have you. If you're a public figure and you've achieved notoriety and success, I'm more in the camp where it's like Satan had something to do with this. But I do believe there are going to be people who are doing God's work and ultimately turn to God. It's in the Bible. You know, the quickest thing you can go to is Nebuchadnezzar. I mean, Nebuchadnezzar, Daniel chapter 4. That's Nebuchadnezzar. And read the 3 chapters before Daniel 4, and make a comparison. See in those 3 chapters the Nebuchadnezzar that's represented there, and then read chapter 4 and read what Nebuchadnezzar has to say about his own conversion experience. And I think it will give you hope. And I don't necessarily think we have to go around saying everybody who is crying Lord, Lord is good to go. I think we need to be Bereans about this. I think we need to be observing it. All of this to say, I don't know. That was just a really cool clip. I'm just glad Tucker said it. I don't know. That was cool. That was really cool.
He met the argument, and I think he did it very well. And did you notice? Psychology is something that I love to watch. And how Joe Rogan handled that. He was obviously very uncomfortable with that because Tucker had the upper hand in saying, hey, look, we don't have a fossil record. This hasn't been proven. This is a theory. And he says, I have a lot of theories. And Joe Rogan snatched that so fast. Oh, what theories do you have? Because he wanted to get off the topic as fast as he can and get on to something that wasn't as provable that Tucker believed, because he was on a topic that wasn't as provable that he believed, and he wanted to let's get out of here. Let's get out of here. Let me talk about something that you can't prove, so I can prove you wrong. And Tucker handled that. I was really impressed. He handled it. It was like putty in his hand, but it's definitely something to think about, because I hope we can. There's some things I probably don't agree with everything Tucker says, but I think it's, for the most part, I appreciate what he's doing, at least with this topic as of now. And I hope that we can continue to pray for what he's doing and help him along by the work we've already done, by reaching out to his team and saying, hey, look, this is something you should look into, as we've done in the past. That's it. That's all I wanted to say tonight. And there was some really interesting stuff that came out. We're still going to dig deeper into Kona Blue and see what that's all about, because I haven't read the whole pamphlet yet, but I'll put that in the show notes. And want to continue to tell people to continue to subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that little bell icon. It really does help. And say something in chat. Reach out to us. There's a few different instances throughout this program we asked for questions on this, and we do read the comments. So if that's something that you're interested in and you want to help us out, join us. Join us every day. Patreon.com/strangenormal. Any last thoughts, Matthew? You want to pray us out?
No. I think we've covered it very thoroughly. This was interesting material. I'll conclude with prayer.
Yeah.
Father in heaven, we want to thank you again for an opportunity to come on, look at this material, and make sense of it through the lens that you would have us look at this through. We want to just offer up a prayer specifically for Joe Rogan and Tucker Carlson. The dialogue that I saw taking place is not one that I feel I get to see very often, and my prayer is for those two men to draw closer to you, to know you, to enter into eternal life with you. just thank you so much. And please, for those men, do draw them closer. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Very good. Matthew, stick around. We're going to do a short recording at the very end for after show. And, folks, thank you so much for hanging around and listening to our baffled about some of the things that have been said and just elated about some of the things that have been said on this program. It's really interesting what's happening right now. And if you are interested in helping us continue this, because, it does cost money to continue this program, and we are paying a marketing agency to help us push this message further out, that's where the money goes. It doesn't go to my pocket. It goes to helping out this channel 100%. So join us on Patreon, patreon.com/strangenormal. Patreon.com/strangenormal. We look forward to seeing you in the chat. Every little bit helps. My name is Bradley. This has been pure strangeness and absolute normalcy. Strange normal. We're going to make this work tonight. Whatever is happening here on this thing. There we go.